Perfect start then for Michael Carrick as his side beat Manchester City, city rivals, by 2-0. Just taking a look at what that means for the Premier League table. Obviously, we'll talk about Arsenal, that draw against Forest a little later on, and Liverpool's draw as well at home. But we'll kick things, obviously, by talking about City, who sit second at the moment. They are 7 adrift now of Arsenal. Manchester United, meanwhile, just one off Liverpool and a top 4 spot. For more on this, let's welcome in Mark Ogden. Oggy, I tell you what, that must have been the happiest you've seen Old Trafford for a very long time.
It was, and you know, they've had a couple of good results over the last 2 or 3 years. I think the FA Cup winning against Liverpool a couple of years ago under Eric Ten Hag. But I think, the atmosphere was great that day. It was great today. But I think the difference today was that United actually won a game they deserved to win. In the past, they've had big wins and they've been kind of clinging on. But today, from start to finish, Michael Carrick got his game plan right. United were on the front foot, attacking it, and it was like watching, the old Man United of, being attack-minded and going for it really. So you have to give credit to Michael Carrick for that tactic. And I think obviously the return of Brian Mbeumo and Ahmad made a big difference. But having watched the Ruben Amorim teams and prior to that the Eric Ten Hag teams, but mainly Amorim, it was just complete night and day because the football that we've seen for the last 18 months at Old Trafford has been terrible. But today, it just showed that they've actually got some good players if you play in the right positions and give them the right formation and just give them a bit of belief.
They were really good, weren't they, today?
They were really good today. And they've set a bar now, they've set a standard, these players, that Michael Carrick can go in after the game and say, listen, that's it. If we play like that, we've got half a chance. But if we drop the standards, then the results will just go back to where they were and the performances. Martinez coming back in from a long layoff, with his, not just his aggression at the back, and he's not everybody's cup of tea, I know that, but his ability to pass the ball out from the back. Maino coming in, who was out the equation under Ruben Amorim and looking really tidy on the ball. Bruno Fernandes getting further forward, able to get in those more dangerous areas and get more involved and get runners off him, which they had. It just all looked a lot better. And as Oggy said, it's the first time in a while I've seen them take on one of the best sides in England, albeit they were not at the best today, and maybe that was a lot down to United as well. But it's the first time I've seen them against a side going for the championship, and they could have scored 5, and they deserved to win. They outplayed them at times. They were smarter than them. They were quicker to the ball. They were aggressive in their challenge, and they had some real quality about them going forward. So I thought, all in all, bearing in mind it was a big decision given Michael Carrick to the end of the season, it could not have gone any better.
Yesterday, Stevie, you said you've got to be careful if you're United not to go for it too much because you're going to leave yourself exposed.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, when they left themselves exposed, the back four did the job,
right,
which was as big a surprise as anything. Dalot and Shaw, Shaw in particular, has shown us what he's capable of. Shaw's a guy who sometimes turns up and you think he's still in his bed. But today, he was at it, he was tight, he made good decisions. And Dalot, other than that crazy challenge that he made on Doku, was good defensively as well. Harry Maguire and Martinez never looked in any danger. They looked comfortable, regardless of what they had to do, whether it was balls in the box or whether it was just basic defending. They were just a step ahead of anything that Man City could throw at them. And you're 100% right. I said yesterday, if they go toe-to-toe, they're in trouble. Well, they went toe-to-toe and they completely outplayed City.
But Shaw's played as a lot of the games as a left-sided centre-back in a 3, which he can do. But he's a left-back, isn't he?
He's stuck in the middle.
But I know what you mean, Stevie. He has had a lot of injury problems, and at times he has cut a bit of a frustrating figure because there's a much more aggressive, better player in there, and I think we saw a lot of that today. But I even think we saw some real composure in the midfield from Casemiro and Kobe Mino, and being able to play those little clever balls around the corner because they had Bruno Fernandes in good positions, and he was either able to get turned and start things off or drop a little deeper and then play those balls over the top. And of course, one of the big decisions, I think, maybe it wasn't a big decision, was the fact that Mbeumo comes back and starts because Sesko has just hit a little bit of form, and I think 1 or 2 going to Old Trafford might have thought the big guy would have started up front, but you have to say he got that one spot on.
Oggy mentioned it. It seems simple, doesn't it? Play the players in their right position, and you're going to get a better performance.
Yep.
Why haven't we seen, Ruben Amorim, obviously in particular, do this? Why complicate things when you're not getting the same results?
Well, because coaches sometimes do that and they overcoach and they, you know, and Shaw's a great example. When he's playing the left side of a three, it's more complicated.
Right.
But when you task him to play left back, he knows exactly the role. And every single one of those in red today looked as though they actually knew what the role was. And they went and executed that. And I think they were a little fortunate they found a Man City side that weren't quite at it. But they were. And so we saw what they're capable of. Just because, as you said, football players love it when it's simple, you know. Just give me a job. Tell me what you want and I will do it. That's what Carrick did today.
I would never make excuses for the United players. But it's a much more difficult dressing room to get motivated, to put performances on when your manager is continually talking you down.
Right.
He did.
Worst Manchester United team ever.
Oh, I haven't got, you know, I'm just never going to get the players to play this system. This is the worst team. You know, Marcus Rashford, I'd rather play the bus driver. I haven't got this. I haven't got that. You know, let's put it all on the players. He tried to talk them down to talk himself up and make himself look better. And in the end, what he was getting from the players was half-hearted performances. Now, I'm not saying that's correct, but players listen. And so, you know, and I'm not suggesting this is going to go and be the greatest thing ever. We don't know, but it certainly was a great performance today. But don't you just feel much better if you're in the dressing room and your manager's coming in saying, look, simple, for this, you're playing there,
right.
You're that, this is what we're doing. You know, give you a little bit of belief rather than listening to a manager sat there with his head down in a press conference saying, I'm never going to get the players and I'm not this. I'm a manager in my head. What the hell am I?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so depressing in the end. I think it just got to everybody. So that little bit of freshness, certainly today, and next week's another story, but certainly today, we saw this energy about this United side that just wasn't there. Because as Oggy said, maybe they don't have the best players on the planet, but they have some good players. And when you give them good players with energy, belief, and a bit of desire, drive, and confidence, then you get better performances.
What the heck was City doing today?
Well, where do you want me to start? Team selection?
Okay, go on.
Okay, Matheus Nunes has the flu and doesn't play, but again, the full-back area hasn't been addressed, and I think we see why Rico Lewis isn't playing. I mean, he was driving me bonkers coming into midfield all the time. It was already crowded enough in there as it was. So he plays two youngsters at centre-back. The young lad Lane really struggled, and that's not a detriment to him, but it was a big game. Aki could easily have played there from the start, and Nico O'Reilly, who's been playing left-back, instead of coming on at half-time, when you're already losing momentum, he could have started at left-back. So that was a strange one. We all thought Cherky would have played. He didn't. He'll come on at half-time for Phil Foden. And Semenyo got more and more frustrating as the game went on. And the longer the game went on, the more inside Lewis and Semenyo came. And at one point in the centre-half, I'm watching it, and I was thinking to myself, they can't even go wide. They could only go one way. So United could squeeze them to Doku, because they couldn't go to the right-hand side in the second half for the bulk of the game, or the bulk of the second half, because the full-back and the wide player were stood holding hands with Bernardo Silva and Erling Haaland when he was on the field. There was no space to operate whatsoever. I thought City were pretty pathetic today. And I think all the defensive headaches, and you can tell me, yeah, Diaz and Guardiola are injured. I get that. John Stones. But go back and look at John Stones. Last year he played 11 games, Premier League games. So they knew it was coming. The year before he played 16 Premier League games, not even half. So they knew it was coming then. And they haven't addressed, at the start of the season, they didn't address that scenario on top of the full-back position. I mean, it's just bonkers. I must talk about Aït-Nouri more than any other pundit. But when he went out and signed him at left-back from Wolves, we all went, he can't defend. He likes to go forward. And he's now a centre-half played at left-back to start this game. A midfielder came on at left-back who's played there the bulk of the season. And he's came back from the AFCON, and then he comes on near the end as what choice left-back's he now? So I have no sympathy whatsoever for their defensive issues because they didn't address it. And the Erling Haaland coming off was a strange one, but let's be honest, you could have put anybody up front for City today, and they probably wouldn't even have got a look in. That's how bad they were.
Oggy, did Pep address the substitution of Haaland after the game?
Yeah, he just talked about tiredness and just saving players for the games ahead. He wasn't blaming the games they had recently, but he was mentioning it a little bit. It was a clever way of using the fact that they played a lot of games, but I'm not using it as an excuse. But I think for me, the reason why City lost today and why Haaland was so frustrated was, if you look at City's midfield, I mean, on that graphic you just showed Rodri on his own. I think it was Rodri, Bernardo Silva, but they've got no legs in midfield. And if you think about, Man City's great midfielders over the last 10, 12 years, Yaya Toure, Fernandinho, Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan, Rodri at his best, power, physicality and ability to cover the pitch. They've got none of that now. And they were actually outplayed and outrun by a midfield of Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo. Now, we've all spoken about Casemiro a lot on this show over the years. He's a great player that he was. His legs have gone. And Kobbie Mainoo, who I think embarrassed Ruben Amorim today by playing so well, he does have his shortcomings. He can't get around the pitch. He's not very mobile. He can go to sleep at times. But that midfield two of United's dominated City's midfield. So City couldn't get the ball to Haaland. They couldn't protect the defence. And over the last 12 to 18 months, City spent a lot of money. They've only signed a couple of midfielders. I think Reinders is one that's done okay, but Reinders hasn't really kind of stepped up a level that Bruyne played at. So I think City's midfield is the issue. They're spending lots of money on forwards, they're spending lots of money on defenders, but right in the centre of the pitch, the guys will know you kind of win games in the midfield. If you can't control your midfield, as United have found out over the last God knows how many years, you don't win anything. So City's midfield has suddenly regressed to the point where they're being overrun by Man United midfield, who we've criticised all season.
So he's picked the wrong team. He's picked the wrong midfield as well. Regardless of what you think of Reinders, you put him in there because he can get around.
Right.
So why don't you put him in there? You add that to the two fullbacks. I mean, how you play Kushinov and the young kid at centre back when you've got Ake? There's nobody more experienced in that team in the Premier League than Ake. And you expect Ake to handle Assad coming at you? And then, of course, you see the second goal. It's classic. The fullback's not a defender. Rico Lewis lets Dorgu get inside him and sticks it in an empty net. That is because your fullback can't defend. So he's got it wrong always round. And in terms of Haaland, he must have just packed it in. Pep must have said to himself, we're done.
Right.
We're getting nothing. I'll get him off. Because you're 2-0 in a derby.
But
you don't take the one guy who's capable of doing something and getting you back in the game, you take him off the field. To me, that said he had just decided, you know what, we're getting nothing today. Get him off and get him rested.
All the talk for City was when and not so much from inside Man City, but sort of around them, when Rodri was out and they were struggling last year, was, once Rodri comes back, everything's going to be rosy in the garden again. But yet, one player was never going to come in and, put sticking plaster over the issues that they have. And so he has all these players, particularly in the midfield to forward areas, and I don't think he knows how to use them the best. When you want to play Bernardo Silva a little further forward and Phil Foden in there and two wide guys, I don't care who you are. I don't care how good you are, but Rodri's brilliant on the ball, but he can't cover the ground of two people. No. That's impossible. He just can't. And so you leave him isolated in there as he was at times, defensively, and you've got such a weak back four anyway, an experienced back four, then you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. So you got to look at the manager and say, he got the shape and personnel of this team wrong today, and Man United took their pants down.
City, of course, we saw last year, they don't mind panic buying in the January transfer window. You can't say that, obviously, about Semenyo and Guehi. Great additions to the squad. Are we going to see more now, Mark, before the end of the month?
It's 50-50 with City. I think Guehi should be done the next 24, 48 hours. He's got a medical booked in for Sunday, so that should get done. And obviously, like you say, £20 million for Mark Guehi is a great deal. They would like to get a midfielder, and they do like Elliot Anderson, but I just can't see Nottingham Forest selling Elliot Anderson this window. I mean, it'll cost a lot of money this summer as it is, but Forest are in a bit of a tricky situation at the bottom of the table. I think they'll be okay, but still, it would be reckless of Forest to let Elliot Anderson go now. So, but like I said, City, they've got money, they've got that ability to make teams do deals that they wouldn't ordinarily do. They can appeal to players because of the wages, but I think that one's going to be a tough one to get over the line. But they would like a midfield if they can get one.
Okay, you mentioned Gay leaving, and I just want to tie that in with Glasner and his future, because he certainly wasn't holding anything back after the defeat today. I feel we are being abandoned completely. The worst thing is selling our captain one day before playing a Premier League game. I've kept my mouth shut until now. You get your heart torn out twice this season, both times one day before a game. It happened with Eze and now with Gay. I'm not sure if Glasner's been quiet up to now, but Hoggy, overall, is this a don't blame me for what's happening at Palace, I'm still a great candidate for Manchester United?
I think it's don't blame me, and it might be his exit strategy as well, because if he's talking like that, I can't see him seeing out the rest of the season, because he sounds like he's given up already. In terms of United, obviously, he will be under consideration, but I think those odds there that you're showing, I think they're very, very optimistic in terms of Glasner, because if Man United wanted Oliver Glasner, they could get him now, because he's got 6 months left in his contract. In terms of compensation, it would be peanuts really compared to what they don't want to pay. You probably look at £2 or £3 million. So he's available now in the sense that he's leaving at the end of the season. I think that United are looking at a different level of coach, an elite coach, but obviously we don't know how well Michael Carrick will do. We know that'll start a bandwagon going. But in terms of Glasner, yes, he's available in the summer, but I don't think he's that high up the list at Man United right now, because, like I say, if they really wanted him, they can get him now. I think Glasner wants to make a step up. I guess the club that might be more suitable for Oliver Glasner is maybe a Tottenham, that kind of level below the top clubs, but still a progression from Palace. But would anybody want to go to Tottenham? That's the question.
Can I just quickly go back to something Oggy said on Man City, because it's really, I think it's a little bit annoying in a sense, not what Oggy said. Oggy said, well, they need another midfielder, they need this. How many players does this manager need?
Yeah.
How many players? How much do they need to spend? What's he doing on the training field? Oggy says they need another midfielder. They've got Rodri fit. Nico Gonzalez has got a knock, but they signed him for 60 million. Tijani Reinders they signed from AC Milan. Bernardo Silva's still there. And then they've got all these attacking. How many players? Are we just going to keep sitting here and saying, oh, they need another 2 midfielders, they need another 3 centre-halves? Are they just going to roll it out for him until he's got enough players to win this Premier League again? And use that as an excuse? Because he has enough players.
Yep.
OK, he's got these injuries at the back, but I go back to it. They did not address these areas in the summer. But we're sitting here saying he needs another midfielder, and he says, they've got these players. They have them. It can't be an excuse for Pep Guardiola, after last season's debacle, to say, I don't have enough players. Right? I'm sorry, that is not a good enough excuse. When you look at his squad, and you look at one, and as I say, Gonzalez is out with a knock, but it's not long term, I don't believe. And Tijani Reinders was one of the best players in Italy. It's hence the reason they signed him. And Bernardo Silva is still there. There's 4 midfielders at least.
Why are you hitting your phone?
Because I'm getting angry. I'm going to bash the phone. I just feel there's always, and I'm not saying Oggy's making an excuse, but I just feel that there is a thought process out there that A, City haven't spent enough, and B, City don't have a big enough squad. Yeah. That's nonsense.
He was complaining last year that he had too big a squad, didn't he, in the second half of the season.